Hello, ladies and gents, federal employees. Welcome back to another great episode with your host, yours truly, Dallen Haws. It is great to be with you today. And today, we are going to do a follow-up to I did a few weeks ago a video and an article and a podcast, all that good stuff, on the FERS supplement, right? And I went through over my website about, okay, this is all the things that you really should know about how the FERS supplement works, who's eligible, how much you're going to get, how to calculate it, all that good stuff, right? Now, what I promised was to do a similar thing, but for special provisions FERS, okay? Because many of the special provisions out there, they say, hey, there's just nowhere to get good information about how the rules are different for them, because they are different, okay? So if you're a traditional FERS, this is going to be tailored to special provisions today. But again, as you're on the internet, you're going to be reading stuff about special provisions, you're going to be reading stuff about traditional. So having a base understanding of how it kind of works for both people will help you not get confused as you're reading online, as you're doing research. So I honestly recommend anyone who's listening to continue listening, to have an idea, a base of knowledge, so that as you're learning more, that things sound a little more familiar, that things don't take you as far off track as they would have before having a base of knowledge. So without further ado, we're going to jump right in. And for you special provisions, I would honestly I'd recommend you looking at the previous video, the previous article I did. It was a week or two ago, about the FERS supplement for traditional FERS, okay? Because it really dives deep. And in this video and podcast, I am only going to dig into some of the key differences that you need to watch out for. But if you want an overall deep dive, go check out the other video. There's lots of great details there. So, that was a long intro, but without further ado, let's jump right in. So, one of the key differences in general for special provisions FERS, law enforcement, air traffic controllers, firefighters, those types of folks, is that they could typically retire earlier with an immediate retirement, okay? For traditional FERS, they have what they call a minimum retirement age, where if you want to retire with an immediate retirement, you have to be at least your minimum retirement age. And of course, there's requirements for how many years of service you have to have. For special provisions, the rules are different, right? You know that if you have at least 20 years of service, you can retire it at age 50, okay? Now, if you have at least 25 years of service, you can retire at any age, which is a great benefit. So typically, special provisions FERS retire earlier than their traditional FERS counterparts, which is great. So how does the FERS supplement work for those folks, okay? So the good news is that as long as you retire with an immediate retirement as a special provisions FERS, you can get your FERS supplement right away. So for example, let's say you have 20 years of service and you retire at age 50. Great. You can start your FERS supplement right away. You don't have to wait till your minimum retirement age. You don't have to wait for anything. You can draw it from age 50 all the way up to age 62 for 12 years, which is a lot longer than traditional FERS can. So that's a great benefit as well. And for example, for those that, let's say you started as a special provisions FERS at age 20, right out of, a couple years out of high school, you started as a firefighter, whatever it is, you started. Well, technically, you would have 25 years at age 45, and you'd technically be able to retire right away, right then, and draw your FERS supplement and your pension right away, which can be an amazing benefit. Now, one thing that I definitely hammered on in the last video, I'm going to touch on here, is the reduction to your FERS supplement when you make money in retirement, okay? So basically, there's an earnings test, and it's similar to the earnings test that happens to Social Security if you take Social Security before your full retirement age, okay? So basically what it is OPM says, hey, how much money did you earn last year? Okay, earned income. And when I say earned income, I'm talking about W-2 job, or if you own a business, and it's business income. Those are the two types of income that counts for this earned income requirement. So if you just start taking money out of your TSP, or you have your pension, that stuff doesn't count towards this earned income. So OPM says, hey, how much earned income did you have last year? And based on that, they're going to reduce your FERS supplement accordingly. Now, one big difference for FERS special provisions, okay, is that this earnings test does not come into play until your minimum retirement age. Okay, so for example, let's say you retire at 50, again, same example. You can earn as much as you want, and your first supplement is not going to be reduced at all between age 50 when you retire until your minimum retirement age. So let's say it's at 57 as your minimum retirement age. Well, you got 7 years where you could go start a business, you can go get a job, whatever, earn as much money as you want, and your first supplement will not be reduced at all, which is a huge, huge benefit, because stereotypically, special provisions employees retire earlier, so typically they want to still do something. They want to work, they want to start a business, they want to have a job, something, whether it's on the contracting side, whatever it is, they want to do something, and so this allows them to do that without their retirement income, their first supplement, being reduced until, of course, their full retirement age, which at that point it would be reduced. If you want more details on that, check out the other video I did on this for traditional FERS, because the reductions are the same, that it happens the same way. So definitely something to think about. Now, this isn't to do with the first supplement technically, but one thing to think about as a special provision FERS is one big difference between you and the traditional FERS is that you can actually access your TSP a little earlier as well. If you retire in the year that you turn 50 or later, you can actually access your TSP before the typical 59 and a half, right? And so if you're actually looking to retire for good, maybe you're 50, early 50s, these are some of the things that you definitely want to know to say, hey, how is my first supplement gonna react? Let's say if I work a part-time job, when can I get money out of my TSP? What penalties, what taxes are going to come into play? These are some of the key things that you definitely want to think about when you're thinking about retirement. Because again, special provisions FERS typically retire early. Now, I talked a lot about the special provisions, and if you are a special provision, but you say, hey, I'm not going to have the typical 20 years in special provisions, how do I qualify for the first supplement? Well, if you don't have enough special provisions years, okay, then you can always qualify under the traditional rules, where at your minimum retirement age, 30 years, at age 60, you have to have 20, and at 62, you have to have 5 years of service, right? That's the traditional rule. So if, let's say, you did 10 years of special provisions, okay, then you moved over to just traditional FERS, well then, of course, you have to qualify under the traditional FERS rules. Because if you don't have at least 20 years of special provisions time, then typically none of that counts towards special provisions retirement. There's some nuances and things to think about there, but in general, that's how it works. So typically go for the 20 years if you can, because there's a ton of benefits. Your pension is a lot bigger. Of course, you're eligible for the first supplement right away. Lots of other things to think about, but it can make a ton of sense if you can do the full 20 years of the special provisions FERS. So hopefully that makes sense. I know you special provisions FERS have really been asking for more content geared towards you. I'll do my best, but I hope that was helpful today. Have a phenomenal rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.